You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me. After a very long break, we are back. 5 years, 235 episodes of this show, and I just kind of hit a wall. I thought I was done with podcasting forever. It was just a challenging time in my life. If you listen to maybe episode 234, 235, I was alluding to the fact that I was closing up shop and I didn't know if I was coming back. Well, here we are 7, 8 months later, whatever it is. And it feels great to sit down and be ready to record. I have missed this. I have missed you guys online, listening and in the Facebook groups and all those things. So this is just a celebratory. I am back. We're going to get together and I'm looking forward to the future. We're not sure yet, but this recording might be our first on YouTube. We're going to see how the video editing goes. And up until this point, I've been an audio only podcast. And so there's those episodes available on your favorite podcast streaming platform. I may be able to move those over to YouTube if we end up going that way. So we're still on the edge of our seats, waiting to see what will happen. And I am on the edge just as much as you are. So thank you for joining me on this. And I want to tell you, my guest today is the most appropriate person to kick this off because it wasn't long before I hit that wall and took my break that I met Ginny Cruz on Facebook. I was just scrolling on my local community group, and I saw this gal posting about a Christian writers conference, but she lived in my town. And so I was so curious who this author was and why she was advertising a Christian writers conference. I stalked her a little bit on Facebook, and then I sent her a private message, and pretty soon we were sitting at coffee. And I think that first coffee meeting was at least 3 hours, if I remember right. Does this sound right?
That's
yeah.
Right.
And so from there, we ended up going to church together, going to Bible study together, and have gotten together for coffee since several times.
Yeah.
And so it's just really exciting the way God works to connect people. And I know just as he had Ginny and I set up to meet in that time and that place for the future, you are here today listening for some purpose. And so we are excited about that. So Ginny has been such an encouragement to me over the past year as I was walking through some of these personal and family challenges, which just really made me kind of stop in my boots and say, oh, Lord, what is going on here? And where do you want to lead me? Ginny, you walked me through that, and your friendship has blessed me. And I'm so excited to introduce you to my friends here because I know you will be a blessing to them too. So to get started, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about your family and even your early days faith journey.
Well, before I get started with that, Pam, let me just ditto everything you said. God's plan is, I don't know why we even question it, but we do. We start getting a little nervous about whether he's going to provide, and then he comes right on through, and he brought you right out of Facebook, and then, you've just been a blessing to me too. So thank you for sharing that, because I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
My faith journey, I guess, I won't go all the way back to when I grew up, but I grew up in I'll just briefly cover that. I grew up in basically a pretty stable Christian home. Both parents, we had no drama, really. My sister and I joke that we grew up in Mayberry RFD, and we kind of did. And then as we got out into the world, we realized, how blessed we were that we really didn't have a very dramatic faith journey, if you want to call it that, as we grew up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I grew up and went into physical therapy and got married and started working and all those things. And my faith journey really kind of started not only with what I was seeing in my professional life that made me have a lot of faith questions as to what kind of God would allow some of this stuff to happen to innocent children.
Hmm.
And also, and then I was unable to really have children. I went through an infertility journey, and those two things kind of collided. And so I went through a really dark period there, like in my 20s, where I was really struggling and angry with God because I was dealing with helping children who were suffering with unimaginable things that, you wonder why. Well, why God, why? That's all you can come up with is why God, why. But also, I saw children who were abused,
Mm.
unwanted, cast aside by mothers who really didn't care for their children, but then He wouldn't let us have children. So those two
Mm.
things put me in a very dark hole there for a while. And so that's where I think the way I look at it now is I went from living off of my mother's faith to living my own faith, to where
Mhm.
I had to really dig out that Bible and go, what of this do I really believe? It had to become my own story. So that's kind of where my faith journey began. And to go a little further, we eventually adopted two children from overseas. That was a whole faith journey of
Mhm.
trusting God. Um, and then also just eventually when I think both of my sons were in like middle school age, high school and middle school, and I was still working part time and juggling, driving them everywhere and going to that whole kind of similar to where you are right now, where you live in the car.
Yeah.
And most moms who are listening to this have lived in the car or they will live
Mhm.
in the car one
Mhm.
day. Um, just complete burnout. Absolute burnout is where I got to. And I had always been able to kind of compartmentalize what I saw, or I say that now. I basically could sort of put it aside emotionally, what I was dealing with at work. But by the time I got into my 40s and going through menopause, early menopause, and then all of that burnout, a lot of that stuff just had to come out. And that's when I was going through anxiety attacks, panic attacks, didn't have no idea what set it off, if anything. But I finally got to a point of, God, I don't know what you want me to do. Do you want me to keep
Mm.
doing physical therapy? What would I do? Right? Do I have any other talent? I was not really ever crafty or gifted in music or any of those things. Like, what else would I do?
Mhm. Mhm.
And the next morning, I woke up and lyrics, poetry was just coming to my mind.
Mhm.
And I knew it was from God because I never liked poetry. I never wrote poetry. I never loved poetry. I wasn't really a song person. You know how those people
Yeah.
are. Maybe one of those
Yeah.
people I think they can tell you a song lyrics, who wrote it, who.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was.
Mhm.
Um, and so I just started writing all that stuff down. And looking back now, I realized that what God was basically opening up my heart, showing me to do writing. And it took me a long time to figure out what kind of writing. But
Uh-huh.
um, a lot of that early writing was basically a diary of dealing with all of that emotional baggage that I had carried around for, decades and
Yeah.
just trying to heal that over and try to basically come to peace with, you know, my faith and what I believed. And
Mhm.
it took me, it's a journey, like we learn, faith
Yeah.
journey is an ongoing process.
Yeah. And you were processing it out as you did all that
Right.
writing. So did
That's
that ever get compiled into some sort of a poetry book or song, or do you still have
I've
this that
written
tucked in the bottom of a drawer somewhere?
Yes, I have notebooks. I have, I worked with another songwriter back probably over 10 years ago now. Some of the stuff I did with her ended up being puppet shows with music. I eventually did like a little DVD and CD that goes with that, Good Character Roundup. And it was little songs about, the virtues, basically,
Okay.
which of
Uh-huh.
course was on our heart that we were seeing that was slipping away
Yeah.
from people, from young children. And so I still have stuff that I've tucked aside and never done anything with it. God just hasn't opened the door,
Yeah.
but it did open the door for more like, writing books, writing articles, those kind of things.
Yeah, you told me that you have also written for Focus on the Family.
Yes, that conference that I was advertising that time that we became
Uh-huh.
friends at Blue Lake Christian Writers Conference is where I was able to talk with one of the editors from Focus on the Family and pitch some ideas to them, and was able to get some articles on their digital content, which is where they like a lot of other people. That's where more people read is digital
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
magazine content. Um, and so I was able to write for them for a while. I haven't done anything lately for them, but basically I was writing. This is another thing about the faith thing. When I thought that God wanted me to write, He wanted me to write for Him, Christian content.
Yeah.
And that was what originally was on my heart. But the doors that He's opened were not, they were what we would call in the publishing industry traditional publishing with a Christian worldview. So it's not necessarily like uh, devotions, Bible teaching, those kind of things. It's more, I'm talking about children's development, but I also weave in there, you know, a spiritual message, how we get our hope,
Yeah.
where we get our hope when we're struggling with what's going on with our
Mm-hmm.
children. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what I did for Focus on the Family.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that was a wonderful opportunity because, they have worldwide reach. So,
Right.
yeah.
And if you're looking for a resource for man, anything parenting or marriage related, if you've not heard of Focus on the Family, that is somewhere to get
Absolutely.
online and find their publications. That I remember when I was in high school seeing Focus on the Family paper magazines that would come. And of course, they've got magazines for children and one whole thing for young girls. And I don't know if they have a boy one or not, but anyway,
I think they
they
do.
they go back.
They have really tried to also move into that teenage
Yes.
content
Yeah.
because there's a that's just a really dark time for a lot of kids, especially now.
Yep.
And but yeah, they have radio, podcasts, TV shows. I mean, Focus on the Family. I visited their campus when I was out there a few years ago. It's as big as a college.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It is a huge thing. So yes, I would tell people it is a great resource to go online and see what all you can find there.
Yep. We went there 19 years ago, just from Oregon. We drove to Colorado just as a destination with our family and went through the whole Wits End ice cream shop and down the slide and all the things. And I can imagine it's even bigger now. So that was a while
It's
ago. But
crazy.
yes. So, as you obviously had history as a physical therapist before you became a mom. And then once you became a mom, did you feel like I'm a professional? I have this down. Um, you know, just so fully confident in yourself? Or were you also a little bit on the edge of your seat, wondering if I could really do this or not? Like, Lord, help
I
me
was
today.
totally unprepared, totally unprepared for it. Um, and I don't think it would have mattered what age I'd adopted my children. Both of my children, though, were not infants when I adopted them. The oldest one, Sam, is from the Philippines. We adopted him. He was 16 months old, so he was already a toddler.
Okay.
He was already walking and talking. Of course, he wasn't speaking English.
Yeah.
Um, he was speaking another language, Tagalog, and then so that was those challenges
Mm-hmm.
of trying to learn how to parent a child that's a toddler, but also a toddler who has changed everything about their lives.
Yeah.
The food, culture, the smell, everything changed. And so there were a lot of challenges with that. And so that's another faith journey. I learned a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that I have eventually compiled in my books and writing that I learned because I had to learn it.
Yeah.
At that time when we adopted him, I was doing pediatrics, but I was doing more acute care, like at Children's Hospital, premature babies. Um, Not what I ended up doing toward the end of my career, where I was dealing more with teaching parents how to change their routines to try to help their children meet developmental out, meet their developmental milestones.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I was the stuff that I was teaching those parents toward the end of my career is stuff that I had firsthand experience with. Um, and I learned it because I had to learn it. And then eventually I needed it when, my other uh, parts of my career. But like sensory issues,
Mm-hmm.
feeding issues, delayed talking,
Mm-hmm.
is it what we're doing? Should I have this evaluated? I mean, I lived all that. And so then our second child was 11 months, and he was from Vietnam, David. So that was uh, he was younger, only by about what 5 months, 6 months. But that 6 months makes a
Yeah.
huge difference in how easy that transition goes. There's still a little
Yeah.
bit less aware, I guess, of
Mm-hmm.
their routines and all those things.
Yeah.
And so, no, I was totally unprepared. And when I look back now, I realized, well, I would have done this differently, and I would do this, done this differently. And so, some of that's what I've weaved into stuff I've written.
Mm-hmm.
That I just, I knew it some of those things academically,
Mm-hmm.
but knowing them and then applying them in your own home
Mm-hmm.
is a whole different ball game. And
Mm-hmm.
so I have empathy for moms. It's like, you can know things,
Mm-hmm.
but making that work in the day to day is a whole different challenge.
Yeah, for
A
sure.
whole different challenge, when it's your child and you're the one that's sleep deprived and you're the one that's stressed out and you're like, I know I shouldn't turn that TV on, or I know I shouldn't give them this lollipop, but I'm going to give it to them because I'm about to lose my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been there, I'm
Mm-hmm.
human.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's a faith, always a faith journey.
Mm-hmm. I've told people so many times that I can create the best calendar, like my list of things to do, and I have things dropped in with the best cadence of, oh, this is what my day is going to look like, and these are the lists that I'm going to do. And then when I get into it, like I forget that I even made the list. Like it's somewhere. I don't know where it is. And so I get what you're
Yep.
saying, because that is like in our mind, it's supposed to work out this way, but we get busy in our day to day and managing. Somebody wants a snack, somebody has an owie, and the emotional toll our children, that we carry for our children, and that our children carry individually, and we are stewarding that works into also all of the physical things in life that was, that emotional stuff was really not on my list to do,
Right.
but it is so very important. And I'm sure that having adopted children and at later ages, you have also some of the developmental milestones that you're looking at as a pediatric therapist, and how you're helping your sons with that. But also there's some probably grieving even as little ones, that's part of the process. So much of our emotional health and spiritual health is connected to our bodies too, the things that we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Um, and, you know, that's something that when you're in the midst of it, you know, it's where I have a real heart for moms. When you're in the midst of it, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, you're
Yeah.
just surviving. You are surviving. We are all surviving. Um, but it does help to um, at least try to learn and know more. And you can't necessarily do those things all the time,
Yeah.
but you can do them most of the time. You know, I've
Yeah.
told mothers it's not 100% you got to do this or what how many times do you do this exercise or whatever. It's how many times you do it and how long you do it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
like raising children. It's a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a sprint. It's not a sprint. You know, that
Mm-hmm.
those first few months or those first few years, yes, they're important, but so is teenage years, and so is when they're in their 20s and they have their own, they're married and they're, you know, whatever. It's a
Mm-hmm.
it's a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you do most of the time is what they're learning. What you're
Mm-hmm.
modeling most of the time. You're not going to do it all the time, but most of the time, it's what they're going to pick up on.
Yeah.
And they'll
Now
forget
you,
your frailties, you know.
yeah, that, well, and thankfully the Lord brings certain things to mind, right? And it's
Right,
good that sometimes we forget certain areas of our childhood, and the Lord just brings good thoughts and feelings to our minds about certain
right,
times in life, right?
right.
Now, you are currently a mentor mom at our local
Yeah,
Agape Moms group. And I know there you're able to just be a table mom and encourage the young ladies in their journey right now where they are. And so tell me a little bit more about, so you are retired now as a physical therapist,
right,
but you have a heart for moms and some of the just challenges we have in day to day, and you minister to moms at Agape Moms, but you've also written a book, and we want to make sure we get to that because that's kind of like the Lord has put this on your heart.
right.
And so tell me more about that.
Well, the Agape Moms, and thank goodness for that. If I hadn't met you, Robbie wouldn't be in Agape Moms. And I just love that group. Um, the things that we are currently talking about, you know, our spiritual identity in Christ, and and so that's been a very helpful discussion. And so, you know, we have a group of moms, they're all different ages. Some of them have infants, some of them have teenagers, and then mine are grown, you know, so it's a whole variety, let's put it that
Mm-hmm.
way. And but we basically talk about spiritual development, you know, like
Yeah.
people are struggling with, everybody's struggling with family issues, or they're
Yeah.
struggling with um, their own faith walk, you know, and it's helpful, and it was helpful to me when I was that age to talk to older women who they've been there, they survived, and you realize if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and also to be around Christian women who are encouraging and helpful without being judgmental.
Right.
And so that's very important. You know, um, like I said, I was fortunate to grow up in a home of strong Christian women and men too, but the women
Mm-hmm.
had the biggest impact on me. And my mother and both of my grandmothers, we all lived close to each other. So I basically had like three mothers, you know, if you want to say that. Um, but there was no separation between them as
Mm-hmm.
far as it was like three identical belief systems. You know
Okay.
what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? They were all basically living off the same. They were all living the Bible, and they all read the Bible and preached the Bible and
Yeah.
whatever. And so I had seen, and so in those days, there was I'm that old now. In those days, we didn't have all the distractions kids today have,
Yeah.
where when we were around our grandparents, we were watching them and
Mm-hmm.
interacting with them because there was nothing else to interact with.
Grandma and grandpa were
Today,
the
you can glue
entertainment.
to a TV, or, they're on a tablet and the house could burn down and they don't even know it, right?
Yeah.
We were interacting with them. We were in the kitchen with grandmother while she was making biscuits. I was out with my grandfather who was a carpenter. We were out there, putting things together, nailing and sawing. And we
Mm.
learned from them.
Yeah.
And so when I came to having, say with my infertility issues, I remember just thinking about my grandmother, one of my grandmothers who had lived, they survived depression.
Mm-hmm.
All of her children, all of her sons went off to war in World War II,
Oh,
and they had no contact with them hardly at all.
wow.
Uh, and I always think about those things, and I'm like, yeah, well, she didn't fold. She never
Yeah.
gave up on her faith, and that was a
Yeah.
lot tougher than this. It was a lot tougher than this.
Mm.
I had to keep telling myself, that what they went through is tougher than what you're going through.
Mm.
And when you read stories in the Bible, that was a lot tougher than what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And so that helped me get through those times.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of want to keep pouring into other mothers because, you don't necessarily realize it when you're younger, but, the impact your daily life has on your children and the generations that come after you.
Mm.
Because,
Yeah.
that spiritual heritage you read about that,
Yeah.
the generations will be
Mm-hmm.
blessed because you lived your life the way you were supposed to and did your
Mm-hmm.
best, and then your
Mm-hmm.
children know the best. Whether they follow it or not is they have to answer for that, but you did your part.
Mm-hmm. So you also ended up, I want to get to your book. You
Okay.
have recently, I wrote down the name of it, The New Mom's Guide, Help and Hope for Baby's First Year. Now, I apologize. I do not have it in front of me or
I
available
have
to
a
hold
copy
up.
of it. I have a copy
There
of
you
it right
go.
here.
You got it there. I bought two copies and I gave them to each of my daughter in laws who have recently had babies in the last. Oh, wow. We're still, I think, 6 months in. Yeah, we're within six
Yeah.
months for both of them. So I gave those to each of my daughter in laws because I know that your heart in writing that is to do just what you're doing at Agape Moms and to walk with the families, walk with the parents through developmental milestones and to just help them in as on their parenting journey. And so I'd love it if you told me a little bit more about your book, like what people can expect and your heart for writing that, because you told me something about what you were seeing in your professional world, maybe pre-COVID, during COVID, and as we move in. Um, I'm just going to stop talking. Tell me more.
Okay. Well, yes. I mean, we've always, everybody knows of children who have Down syndrome or cerebral palsy or something like that, and we know that unfortunately those children usually do have some developmental delays and have to have physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech
Mm-hmm.
therapy, developmental teachers, whatever. But since 2020, when COVID hit and everybody went into lockdown,
Mm-hmm.
at that time in my career, I was doing evaluations for what's called early intervention services in the state of Florida. They have them in every state. And basically, it is a program set up to identify children who are either already delayed in their development or they are
Mm-hmm.
at risk for development, at risk for developmental delay, like a child born at 25 weeks, something like that,
Right.
a micro
Right.
preemie, something like that, yeah, they're probably going to have some delays. And so we identify those and try to, if they qualify, put into place services to kind of train the parents. We're not really working with the children as much as we're training the parents how to
Mm-hmm.
help their child in the daily routines to try to
Yeah.
promote that development.
Yeah.
So at that time, I was doing those kind of evaluations. Well, when COVID hit, we were doing those remotely, just like you and I are doing this right now. We're doing it over Zoom. So everybody knows the whole world went upside down during
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
So since 2020, what we started to see was a lot more delays that were not necessarily like diagnosable, like, oh, this is Down syndrome or this
Mm.
is whatever. No, these were delays caused by their daily routine or things the child was not exposed to,
Okay.
which has a really uh, sad description. It's called environmental deprivation. We tend to
Okay.
think of environmental deprivation as, impoverished families who maybe don't have a whole lot of things. And those are still there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in many
Mm-hmm.
homes of families who are, on total government assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Child has no toys, no
Mm-hmm.
books,
Mm-hmm.
nothing. Those are always still going to be there. What we
Mm-hmm.
saw was environmental deprivation because they were being deprived of enough social, emotional interaction.
Okay.
And we're still seeing delays because of that. And so since 2020, we now know, the research is now showing, uh, over 70% of speech and language therapists reported increased numbers of referrals for language delay, which is also talking, communication
Right.
delay, and
Yeah.
social emotional delays. Think of inappropriate behaviors, withdrawal, anxiety, social
Okay.
anxiety, inability to look somebody in the eye and carry on a conversation like we are, um, just fear of being around people, put it bluntly,
Ah.
and also cognitive delays. And the cognitive delays have to do with how the child is playing with toys or what they're not doing with those toys.
Okay.
So when children were kept at home, parents were living online because they had to. Not
Mm-hmm.
It's not a judgment thing. It's just a statement
Right.
of where we are and what we need to do about it.
Yep. That's where we were.
Families
Yep.
were working online. They
Mm-hmm.
shopped online. They never left the house. We couldn't leave the house.
Mm-hmm.
So if a mom has to work, you have to keep your children quiet. The best way to keep them quiet is to put them in front of a TV or a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
Put them on a set of headphones. And that's what happened. And it's survival. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it came with some consequences.
Yeah.
And the consequences are those children are more comfortable alone, watching a tablet or watching something, a game or whatever, in their own little world. And in that own little world, they don't have to talk to you. They don't have to make eye contact with you. They don't have to get into back and forth conversation, dealing with their own emotions when they don't get their way.
Hmm.
They're not learning impulse control because,
Hmm.
let's face it, on a tablet or on a game or on your phone, the minute you get frustrated, you just change and do something else.
Yeah.
I do too. It's not the same as the real world. And and so those things have led to delays in development. And if you talk to teachers, especially kindergarten, first grade, second grade teachers,
Mm-hmm.
um, they're now dealing with some of that. And actually, the all of the teachers are, because it's actually a bigger problem in high school than it is in
Mm.
elementary school. But those children have not been around people.
Mm.
They've not had to carry on conversations. They've not yet learned you can't push, you can't put your hands on people, you can't just scream out, or
Wow.
they haven't learned impulse control. And so those are the kind of things that led me to kind of write this book, because it was just, God put it on my heart. It's not really a Christian book. I weave in there my Christian beliefs, my scriptures, how I find my hope when things look dark. But it's basically just a way to show moms um, what their child is learning,
Mhm.
why it's important to do certain things, and why it's important not to do other things. It's
Mm-hmm.
meant to be not a finger wagging, like don't do this and don't do that. Because these moms today grew up on screens. They live on screens. So they're comfortable with them, so they don't see the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is they grew up on phones or whatever, but their little brains didn't start on those when they were babies.
Yeah.
And
So different, isn't it?
the
Mm-hmm.
wiring that's going on in your brain when you're a baby of how you're learning and how you're making how parts of your brain are learning to communicate with each other is where you're it's basically like weaving a foundation that the rest of your knowledge builds on.
Right.
And if you grew up on screens and you had a lot of screen time, and I'm talking about 2 hours plus a day, um, you're not learning.
Yeah.
Your foundation is going to have cracks in it.
Yeah.
And we don't yet know if that can be undone.
Hmm.
This book is to kind of help moms realize that these parenting techniques they may not be that familiar with because of the age they grew up in, but these
Mm-hmm.
are still the scientifically backed best
Mm-hmm.
way
Mm-hmm.
to raise babies and interact with them and
Mm-hmm.
teach them.
Mm-hmm.
And it has nothing to do with electronics,
Hmm.
apps, none of that. The old ways are still the best ways.
This sounds like it's really easy to go, oh, it's just little stuff, it's not a big deal, but really what you've described is really a cumulative effect um, of the little things we do, like you said, the routines in our lives, the habits that we have in our home that really lay the foundation. And so what you've done in the book and what you do as you sit with ladies, you help give them a little bit more framework and suggestions along the way through those developmental milestones that could be really applicable day to day. So, what I would like to do is I want to point everybody to your places they can find you online.
Okay.
Um, and I think we're going to wrap up towards that end. If
All right.
unless there's something else that I really missed that you want to tell me.
Well, I would say this came to mind. This is one thing that I share with a lot of women. I said, I grew up knowing that my mother read the Bible
Mm-hmm.
because I saw her read the Bible, and
Yeah.
my grandmothers read their Bibles.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my parents and my grandparents weren't the type that we didn't do Bible studies and do all that stuff in the home. We were in the church so much. And in
Mm-hmm.
those days, that was just kind of the way. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there were some families, I guess, that did more discipling
Mm-hmm.
than what we did. We just watched what our parents did and learned from
Mm-hmm.
them,
Yeah.
which, like I said, doesn't necessarily work as well today because children are not really watching their parents. There's just too many distractions. There's too many distractions.
Well,
Um,
and if a mama is reading her Bible on her phone, well, when the child just sees the back of my phone, they don't know if I'm on Facebook or writing an
and that's
email
what
or
that's
whatever.
what
Like, they don't know that's my Bible. Like, what a testimony of having an open Bible on your lap that your children see. There's no doubt what mom's
That's
doing.
right, and that's what I tell them. I'm like, you may be doing your daily devotion on your phone. They don't know whether you're shopping on Amazon or scrolling TikTok. They don't
Yeah.
know.
I
They
hadn't
don't
thought of that.
know.
Yeah.
And so they need to see you read a real Bible, a physical, I don't want to say real, physical Bible.
Yeah.
Those kind of things make an impact. I did a speech one time at a mom's group, and my parents had just both, my father had finally passed away. And so my mother passed away earlier. And so we had to close out their estate and their home that we had grown up in, basically. And we found a stack of Bibles. Probably there were at least 7 that weren't just completely falling apart. That was
Hmm.
not all the Bibles they had in their house, right?
Wow.
So I took a picture of all those Bibles,
Mm-hmm.
and I use that when I give that speech. It's like, this was like a picture of my memories of my mother. This is a legacy right here.
Mm-hmm.
What is your child going to remember about your spiritual legacy. And like you said, if it's
Mm-hmm.
on the phone, it's not the worst thing. But what are your children seeing you do?
Yeah.
What are your children? Because that's what they're learning. And they may be on their little tablet and glancing at you. And if you're on your phone and they're on their little phone, they don't really know. It's not the same. It's not the same as you're reading that Bible, making notes and those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we
Mm-hmm.
do, what they see you do or hear you say, is more important than anything that you tell them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because, like
Well,
I said, it's a
I didn't.
marathon. It's a marathon.
Yeah.
What they have seen you do, you're through hard times, good times, day in and day out. That's who you
Yep.
are. And
Yep.
that's what they learn from
Mm-hmm.
you.
I did not grow up in a home where we read the Bible at all or had Bible, even I don't even remember one sitting out, but I would spend the night with my grandma. And every morning when I woke up, I went out to the kitchen and there was grandma sitting at the dining room table with her Bible, her cup of black coffee, and her Eggo waffles with, Aunt Jemima syrup or whatever it was. And, if I went over to my bookcase right now, when she passed away, I got her Bible, and the pages are still stuck together with the syrup. And if you hold it up, it still smells like, fake corn syrup, sugar based maple syrup. But you know what? Every time, I think about my childhood and going to grandma's house, and I knew grandma was a woman of faith. And every morning I saw her there with her Bible. And I remember going up and taking a sip of her black coffee and thinking, I will never drink that. That is so gross. But my sweet memories of grandma sitting there with her Bible. What an impression that made. So much the fact that um, at one point in my motherhood, I thought I read my Bible in my bed when my children are not near me, because I want to either read it early in the morning or late in the evening because I want to be alone because it's my time with the Lord. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute. I want my children to have a memory of me like I have with my grandma. And so I started to bring my Bible out in the middle of the play places. And that's when I read my Bible. And my children now have that memory of me. So
Yeah,
anyway, I'm
my
wondering.
no, that's fine. My mother most of the time read her Bible in her private time too, but the fact that we always saw it there
Yeah,
beside her book, her bed, and it was we could tell she had used it. I mean, you can
yeah,
tell if a Bible's been handled a lot, right?
right,
If you're aware of things, if you're paying attention.
right.
And so we knew, and then she'd have her Sunday school lessons stuck in there.
Yeah,
She taught Sunday
yeah,
school, so we knew she was in
yeah,
that Bible. But
yeah.
something you said real quick before we finish up that illustrates again the importance of what children learn and how they learn. When you
Mm-hmm.
talked about her Bible, you had a visual memory,
Yeah,
you had a taste and smell memory.
yeah.
Okay, you could still smell that
Mm-hmm.
syrup, and so that. But when you are learning something on a screen, you don't have a smell memory.
Mm.
You don't have a tactile memory. You don't have that
Yeah.
sticky. So you may see
Interesting.
syrup on a picture,
Yeah.
okay, on a screen, but you don't smell it and you don't feel it.
Yeah.
You just see it. So today's children have a lot more visual input, but they're lacking tactile input. What does the sand feel like? What does the water feel like? What does,
Mm.
you know, whatever, cold water, hot water. They don't
Mhm.
have as much of that, and they don't have as much of the smell memory. And
Mhm.
smell memory is really um, it's the first thing children learn is how their mother smells,
Mm.
and it's the last sense to go before you pass away. Okay, it is
Interesting.
very, very important, your smell
Mm.
memory.
Mhm.
And so the children today are lacking a lot of sensory input. And I think that may be one reason why they're kind of what we call unregulated when they're moving
Mhm.
around. They're like too rough, too whatever. It's like they're not getting enough movement and dirt and grass and
Mm-hmm.
water and messiness.
Where do I
And
belong in this world?
that's
I can't get
not, so
grounded.
they don't have those memories. Your brain
Yeah.
is learning those memories.
Huh.
And if you don't have those memories, think of how shallow that memory would be of your grandmother if you didn't remember Aunt Jemima and the smell and the taste and the stickiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just the
Mm-hmm.
smell of the Bible, the pages
Yeah.
alone,
Yeah.
the tactile of the onion skin.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're missing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We could go on and
Yeah.
on and
We
on
usually
and
go for 3 hours.
yes, that is true. When we meet for coffee, it's usually 3 hours. So we are going to have to get another one of those on the books. But
Yeah.
until then, tell us, where can everybody find you online? You're on Instagram, I think, and Facebook.
Yes, I'm on Facebook at Ginny Cruz, GINNYCRUZ, and also on Instagram, Ginny Cruz Author. And I have my website, jennycruz.com. And you can actually go to the website and find all my social media there. That's the fastest way to find it. And then I have my little Facebook group, which I think you referred to earlier, called Tummy Time Prayers. And it's not just for moms with babies who are in tummy time, but I start each morning. There's going to be a scripture verse and a little prayer prompt that you can look at, and then I sprinkle little developmental tips, primarily for babies and toddlers, in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're welcome to request to join that, and it's just another way for me to try to help give moms spiritual encouragement, and also just little reminders of do this or don't do that, or these are the best toys for Christmas for babies, or those kind of
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is so great. Lots of resources to glean from. I will also be adding all of the links for the Facebook group and your website, all that, along with a link for your book to Amazon in the show notes. So, ladies, if you just scroll down, click the link, it's going to take you right there. And I'll also tell you that if you purchase the book through my Amazon link, a very tiny, tiny portion of that purchase goes back to support this podcast and the ministry of tending fields. So, for what I do, the Mom Next Door Stories of Faith is the podcast, but I have a website called tendingfields.net and a ministry that is called Tending Fields. More details on that later. I don't want to give you too much info on this first time back, but head to the show notes. Click around. You're going to find lots of areas to encourage your heart and resources for where you are right now. As we close out, Jenny, I want to ask you if you would just pray for those that are listening right now as they are walking on their parenting journey and their faith journey.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Dear Jesus, thank you so much for this opportunity today to get together and just ask you to bless each of the mothers that's listening to this podcast or viewing this on YouTube, if it ends up on YouTube. Just give them a little touch today, Lord, to help them realize that you are there, even when they may feel that you're far, far away. That just remind them that you're there with them all the time, and you're aware of all the stress that they're carrying, the concerns they're carrying, the fears they're carrying, and just sometimes just the total feeling of being inadequate. You're always there, Lord, there to comfort them, help them realize that you are there to equip them for every need they have. There's no mistake that these children are were supposed to be with these mothers, and that the journey that each of them is on, no matter what their children are dealing with, no matter what the mothers are dealing with, it's just part of the faith journey, and we don't understand it. I can personally say I don't really understand all the stuff I've had to go through, but I do know that if you keep turning to Jesus and working with him, that he will turn everything to good. But if you have to go and work through him to do that, otherwise it will not be something that will be positive in the end. And Lord, just keep everyone safe and keep everyone healthy, and let everyone have a joyful Christmas season. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you will get information next time we have an episode coming out. It was great to be here. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true.